What is the implication to black Americans should the U.S. open its borders to mass immigration of illegals? Great question. Black Americans do not have leaders such as who want to champion for their cause, such as Booker T. Washington, who, quote, said, education is the key to paradise. And he also believed that Americans can achieve independence through learning trades, and that would give them economic security. Hold on. That goes in line with President Donald J. Trump's theory that we should learn trades. Liberal Democrats believe the opposite. They believe that taking the African American majority vote and making them believe that they actually care about their causes, when all they give them is lip service, such as President Obama, who has said, I am not the president for black America. I am the president for the United States of America. And him, like his predecessors, Clinton, Johnson, Carter, and Kennedy, all had one thing in common: to get the mass majority vote of the black Americans and to distance themselves from reform for black Americans. Tell you about President Clinton. He signed a $30 billion bill, which was called the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act of 1994, which mandated life sentences for criminals convicted of a violent felony after 2 or more prior convictions, which was also known as the Three Strikes Law. This bill was responsible for the rates of incarcerated black Americans to skyrocket. That's correct. Clinton was also a mass proponent for the 100-to-1 sentencing for crack versus powder cocaine, which created injustices for sentencing and an increase in funding for drug and law enforcement. After Clinton left office in 2001, Human Rights Watch reported that 80 to 90% of drug offenders were incarcerated were, that's correct, black Americans. That allowed unemployment rates for black Americans in their 20s in the 1990s to be at a historic rate high ever. However, government statistics did not report this. They discounted the fact that these black Americans were incarcerated, and they were not part of those statistics. Clinton also then employed what I call is kick them while they're still down by signing yet another bill. It's called the Welfare Reform Act, which put a 5-year cap to welfare assistance for people who really needed it, and they cut back $54 billion in welfare funding. And the bill and they took billions, which was supposed to be for public housing, and allocated it to mass incarcerations. Now that is what liberal Democrats are all about. They are not like Booker T. Washington or Donald J. Trump or Webb D. Du Bois, who also was a champion for black Americans and pushed for them to get an education as well as stand up for civil rights. I'm going to leave you with this one quote and say one thing: that when you black Americans go to vote, do not vote Democrat. President Donald J. Trump is a fine example of what you get when you vote Republican. He said that he would create jobs. He did that. He created over 700,000 jobs for African Americans, and that allowed for a 400% growth rate for African Americans in employment. And now he's a champion for reform, for prison reform. He's a champion for all of America, not just black Americans alone. I want to leave you this one quote that Frederick Douglass had said. He said, "Some know the value of education by having it. I know its value by not having it. Black Americans, go to vote, do the right thing. We have midterm elections around the corner. Do not vote liberal Democrats, because all they are is lip service. And they have political motives for getting your vote. They are not about making America great again, like Donald J. Trump